Welcome back to Parallel Barking.
Woof, woof,
Woof,
woof, woof,
woof, woof.
woof, woof.
This is Ariana.
And I'm
And
her, and I'm her dad.
yeah,
And we're gonna be barking at you.
yes, bark, bark. And at each other, of course. Blah,
Oh,
blah, blah.
but this is a very special one because we may actually wind up spending the next 15 minutes or so saying nothing.
Oh, wow. No, because we're actually together. We're not alone. Unlike,
Well, are we together?
oh, well. No, actually, we are physically apart, but I guess metaphysically together.
No, well, yes and no. Um, I would say we're not together and I could ignore you.
Oh, you could, but
But,
what would be the
but
point?
we're confusing our listeners
We
because
are.
they don't know what we're talking about.
Okay, shush. Let me introduce. So back in November of 21, there are a few articles rolling around the interwebs about South Koreans, among other peoples, being super stressed out. And the unique thing about South Koreans being stressed out was the way that they were handling the stress. The South Koreans were forking out cash and for all we know still are, to sit in a room and stare.
Not their room.
Not their room, in a public space, to stare blankly or to stare,
Whatever.
to stare at a nature space.
Oh, it is a nature. It's always a nature space.
It might be a nature space, or it's usually outside of a window in a relaxing scene, I guess.
So they're actually staring at real nature as opposed to staring at a screen that depicts something.
No, not natural, not necessarily. There are also sometimes I've seen things just hanging on a wall that look nice.
Oh, okay.
So
They're sitting in a room where there is some visual stimulation.
yeah, so
through a window or by an object or something, but not the TV.
Right. It's just a trend so that people can actually go somewhere and zone out without fear of being chastised.
Do they have tea?
Say that?
Can they drink in these spaces, or is it
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
I mean,
how long can they stay?
It depends, I'm sure, on how much they pay.
Okay, so it's like a parking meter. You can stay as long as, okay.
Right, there is a place called the Green Lab. It's a cafe near a nature hotspot, the Seoul forest. It allows its customers to reserve specific time slots.
Oh, that's wonderful. So you can get the right light.
Yes, yeah. I mean, but so this room,
no, I think room, this is a really positive thing.
This room, listen, it faces the greenery of the forest, so the customers can put their phones in silent mode. They don't speak, they just sit.
And, the phones aren't confiscated.
Well, no, I don't think so. I think the point is that people just want to empty their heads and...
But I can cheat then. I can go in and say it's on silent mode, but I could still be looking at whatever cat videos while I'm staring at. Okay.
Yeah, but the thing is, South Korea is known for being super fast paced, right?
Yeah, it's constant stimulation grounded in responsibility or things that have to be done.
Yeah, well, and the harsh realities that we've seen, like through movies like Parasite.
Why are realities harsh?
I don't know. I just mentioned the movie Parasite. Did you really think that was beautiful?
But I'm not sure harsh is the right word.
Okay. Excrement coming up from
difficult.
the Oh, you didn't think that was harsh? You thought that was totally easy? That was cool. You'd like to
Oh,
experience.
well, if you take the movie at face value, it was, but that's another podcast. We can talk Parasite in our next podcast. Um, but yeah, it is stressful.
Yeah,
I don't
I
want to
mean,
put a value on
70%
it.
of Koreans admitted they were stressed.
Yeah, yeah, but it doesn't mean it's harsh. That's imposing your own value system on judging
Okay,
why it
okay,
is
the
that they have to
mounting
say.
debt, that's a harsh reality.
That's certainly a challenging one. But anyway, let's get back to silence or to a contemplative space.
Okay.
So what do you think of this contemplative space idea where
I
people are making money?
I mean, I think it's good that people are getting places to go and be comfortable, to be able to relax and chill out. But I also think it's it's sad that people aren't able to do that for free, and they don't
Why?
have spare time.
There's no such thing as free. Everything costs. That's the first rule of magic.
Well, right.
You can't make something out of nothing.
But that's why it's
And
sad.
everything you do is a choice. Well, no, that means your whole life is a choice. And you're going to have to go and find a mansion with lots of these landscapes, given that point of view. Um, no, it's just the interesting thing for me, I think, is not that they're doing that. We all do it. I mean, in this country, certainly among certain vanguard groups, we have all kinds of interesting equivalents, meditation, contemplative gardens. And that's probably one of the more interesting fads. For example, among younglings at universities and businesses, they'll develop these little uh, contemplating gardens. So it's not just a South Korean thing, although that one is interesting because from a Western perspective, it looks odd. But the impulse seems to be, I suspect that same impulse is can be seen in all kinds of complex societies where there's a lot of pressure on people that comes from a wide variety of areas, pressures from perhaps conflicts or irreconcilable relations between old values and new values, between the pressures of a job and the ideologies of jobs and moving forward, versus family versus personal time. One is constantly bombarded with different sort of normative narrative ideals of what is perfect. And in a way, what I like about this and what I see it is not so much that they're getting that it's a personal pressure in their life, but that what you're really seeing is an effort, or you're seeing lots of things, but perhaps one of the things you're seeing is an effort for people to detach from these warring and somewhat incompatible narrative, um, series of expectation narratives that tend to be tearing people apart. There's in a lot of states, the Americans are no better. In fact, we're worse. There's a marketplace of narrative. Just about, we've got 330 million people and probably 400 million different people yelling, narratives yelling at an individual of what it is they ought to do or be. There are all these ideals, and the human person becomes this place where they all battle, and there's no winning. And at some point,
So, for example, give me a narrative. Like, what is a narrative you're
all right, here's the classic Pacific Palisades. I'm very rich and privileged, but I don't really realize it because I vote Democratic and I give a couple dollars to poor people every once in a while, set of narratives. And you saw this in the movies in the 90s. The narrative of having to be really successful at work, and that may require pulling all-nighters and being aggressive but loving and all of this at work, at the same time that you have to go to every one of your children's baseball games, tea parties, and other creative activities, or you're an absolute loser as a parent and your child will become a serial killer.
Yeah.
Right? These are two conflicting narratives and we love them. The self-actual, and then you add a bunch of them, the self-actualization narrative in this country, where it's all about you, the therapeutic narrative in this country, you have a burden. And now, of course, you've got the burden of privilege. And everyone's got privilege, but some people, so we're duking it out over both the identification of privilege, the identification of identity, and what that means in terms of what is required of you to act, or how one responds to one's condition. So you've got all of these things. Plus, of course, on the most mundane level, the level of kitsch, the narrative of ideal body types, the narrative of costuming, the narrative of diet.
Okay. So we've got narrative.
And on and on. And by now, having done just that little bit, you and I would probably fork out $50 to go, each of us sit in a room next to each other where we can go out and look at a sunset and go,
see,
oh my God,
that's what I'm saying.
Close myself off from that.
There's much pressure. And to me, just listening to that was harsh. That was harsh on my ears, Dad.
Yeah, but there it is. You listen to it every day. You listen to it all the time.
I know. And you're giving me crap about saying it's harsh. No, that's harsh. And that's not even half of what.
You're still hung up on the use of the term harsh.
Yeah, I'm going to use it all this podcast just because you called it out.
That is so harsh.
This is what
that is so harsh.
For calling out.
That's so harsh.
You're terrible. But you know what? What is funny about this is actually the Korean term, honjok, I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right, came about around 217, and it's a term for people who willingly undertake activities alone. So this actually started earlier a little bit.
213 as in the year 213?
No, 2017. Sorry.
Oh my God,
2017.
Wow, we are going back here. So people, but that's also an indictment if you think about it, because if you single that out, which you're suggesting is that the norm, the social norms and the social expectation is in fact not to do things alone, and that it is either aberrational or exceptional.
Well, that's the thing.
To even want to do things alone.
Well, yeah, because like when I go to movies alone, I get weird stares. Like people look at me like, what are you doing?
And you're not even Korea, right? So there are these expectations.
Yeah.
And the expectations are probably more comprehensive, or certainly they will present differently in Korea than they do in this country. But there will be expectations about the norm for what is self-actualizing behavior and the norms that require some kind of communal thing. And actually in the world of work, you see this, taken to the extreme, the notion that it's not the kind of talent that you have that will get you far in business, it's your talent for networking.
Yes.
Right? And so the idea of aloneness, the lone wolf, is a turn of phrase in the West, and certainly in the United States, that suggests both power and danger. And lone wolves, like rogue elephants, need to be culled from the herd. And so to actually do that, right, and in a culture where collective and highly networked interactions are much more the norm, to actually do this might also be viewed not just as detaching yourself from all of these narratives and expectations, but actually an act of rebellion.
Yeah, I mean, and it's even more interesting because it's not a small number. I think it was around 56%. No, students in their 20s, 50.1% of students answered in a survey that they've avoided meeting people intentionally because they've had anxiety over the conversation or being interrupted, or they'd rather be alone than maintaining relationships with people.
Relationships at all, or selective relationships?
Relationships with people.
Okay, interesting.
I
Right.
mean, and the thing is, it's so some people believe it's the people giving up their relationships due to increasing competition and the difficulty in finding jobs, and the living difficulties, because people might be reluctant, and don't have any more energy to develop new relationships and try to avoid meeting people.
Well, this is psychic energy, but that suggests, again, the enervating effects of multiple overlapping and potentially conflicting narrative activations.
That you should be meeting new people, and that not meeting new people is the wrong way to go and not what is expected. Right.
Right. But the problem is, of course, the irony is that there's no timeout. We don't live on the Starship Enterprise. And whether it's a room that you pay money for or dropping into your neighborhood holodeck, it again, which is why I started by asking what the price is. There is a price that you pay, because indeed, at some point you do have to reattach to the world of multiple networked narrative relationships within your society. And perhaps what it suggests is that timeouts are good, but that if the timeout is, let me see how I can put this in a way that's sort of non-jargony. If the timeout produces escape but not release, then all you've done is sort of pause time rather than using that time out to better equip yourself for more robustly or more more positively engaging in the reality of the world in which you are embedded.
Yeah, that's true.
And that doesn't apply just to the Koreans, but it applies to everyone who's living in these very high stress environments, and engaged in, and again, it's not just singularity, it's high stress, multiple environments with multiple and usually conflicting obligations. And I think we may have
we've met our time limit.
We've met our time limit.
Yeah. Well, any last?
Oh, you see, we're getting good at this. We're doing it.
That was parallel. That was parallel, I think.
Well, and we're barking. Yeah, no, it's interesting, but there are a number of discussions that we can then have. Difference between the passive, which is what the Korean alternative, or the active holograms, the Oculus, is that a way of moving out, or and then another one, are both of these just merely ways of managing people, that is, managing their relationship to the world and their behaviors, as well as their tastes and stuff, because all of these can be highly manipulable and potentially exploitable. And then, another podcast that we might be able to do afterwards is the notion, well, deceit. To what extent in the context that we're talking about, are these timeouts really a form of embracing a deception that we are going out? That's sort of the essence of the hologram. You are going into a fantasy realm. Well, it's also gaming,
Well, and
right?
also, whose business is it? Like, it's
So,
none of anybody else's business what anybody does on their free time.
you sound like an early 20th century Western person. I could take the position that, in fact, it's the collective's business
You
to know
could,
every
but that would
single
be wrong.
act. Another podcast. All right.
All
Last
right.
word.
That is
Last word.
my final say, because my dog just busted into the room and is hungry for
All
dinner.
right. Well, my last words are woof woof. And until next time.
Until next time, y'all. See you later.